Okay, hey everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. We appreciate having you here as always in the Michael's Community Classroom for our Monday night painting lessons and classes. We have a treat tonight. We're going to be learning from Andy, and he is going to be doing Still Life in Pink, which is a really beautiful Valentine's Day painting. So what better way to spend the evening than learning that? So as Jimena mentioned, these classes are recorded. So as always, keep in mind that if the pace is a little bit fast for you and you just decide that you'd rather watch the video tonight and then go back and paint on your own time, that's always a great option. You can pause, you can rewind, you can go back and look at things again. So we always encourage that, just because Andy does have to keep moving in order to try and get this done even close to an hour. In this particular painting, I think might be a challenge to do that in an hour. So we are going to have to be kind of moving along. But I'll be right here answering questions in the chat, also passing them along to Andy as we go. So let's not waste any more time. I'm going to pass it over to you, Andy.
Thank you very much, John. I appreciate that. And welcome everyone to another Michael's Community Classroom lesson. And we will be doing this still life as quickly and carefully as we possibly can, trying to get done in about an hour. We'll say that we're doing our best to get that done. Tonight we are doing a 12 by 12 canvas, and I have chosen to do this on a clear primed linen canvas, which I love to leave part of the canvas exposed. I think this linen canvas makes any of your paintings look incredible without you really having to work very hard at that, because the linen is so pretty. All right, so what we're going to do is we are going to begin on our, okay, so here is the whole painting, and you're only going to see part of it because I'm going to cover up part of it with the painting I'm teaching on. But we are going to, first of all, do the background of our painting. Then we're going to paint part of our vase. Then we're going to start in on our flowers and the other parts of our arrangement. This lower left quadrant is going to be left unpainted. All right, so let's get some paint out on our palette and get some colors mixed up. I am using baby pink, and I'm going to put out 2 generous puddles of baby pink. I'm also going to put out some engine red. And I'm going to put out a little coffee bean and some black. So happy Valentine's Day, everyone. I wish that you all had a wonderful day and either did something special with the one you love or had the one you love do something special for you. And if you're not doing that, then I hope everybody was on the same page about not doing anything special for each other. All right, so I'm going to take a chunk of coffee bean and mix that into my first puddle of baby pink because I want to dull that color down. And I don't think that's quite as dull as I want it. So best practices indicate that I will wipe my palette knife off every time I go back into a puddle of paint, because I don't want to mess up a puddle of paint with some errant color and then go back into it and inadvertently pick up something I don't want on my palette knife. So let's keep our palette knife clean and keep our colors clean. All right, so this is pretty dull now. It's not looking terribly pretty either, but that's not to worry about right now. I'm going to spruce that color up by adding just a little bit of engine red to that. Now, if you don't have engine red, you could use Snapple Crimson, you could use lipstick red, you could use apple red, you could use cardinal red. Basically, you could use just about any color that looks like a stop sign. Let's not get hung up on exactly what color we're doing. We just want to get in the ballpark of what's going on. All right, so now this is looking much better. It's looking like a nice kind of dull pinky color. And make sure to mix up enough of this paint because we're going to be painting part of our background with that. We don't want to be making multiple batches of that. All right, so I'm going to make a darker pink color, and I'm starting by adding engine red to some baby pink. And this color is going to be darker and pinker than this color that we just made. So I'm going to add actually a little bit more engine red to that. And now we're going to dull this color down with some coffee bean. So I'm going to add a chunk of coffee bean to this. And I know this is not exciting to be watching me mix a puddle of paint, but I want you to see exactly how I painted this so that if you want to do this, you are able to do it yourself. All right, I'm just going to add more of the engine red to this because I want this more pink. And just like any time I've done a painting, I go back to do it the second time, and the second time is never quite the same. Sometimes it's better, sometimes it's worse, but never the same. All right, I'm going to add a tiny bit of black to this mixture. Black is a very, very powerful color. So when you add black to a mixture, add it in very, very small amounts, or I will have a puddle of a very unpleasant purpley color here that I don't really want. But I'm thinking that looks pretty good. All right, now I'm going to make another color here. I'm going to take some of my, that's my engine red, and to the engine red, I'm going to add some bright pink. At least I think that's going to be bright pink. Yep, that's pretty bright pink. All right, so engine red, some bright pink. And we're going to add coffee bean and black to this to make it a very dark, dull red color. We have to get all this done so we can set the stage for our beautiful flowers. I'm already thinking ahead. I want to remind you of some things that I made mistakes when I was painting this originally. And we'll go ahead and tell you now before I forget. We have our 3 big branches in our vase done. We do not want to paint one color here, and one color here. I did that when I painted mine originally, and I had to go back and redo my background because I'm like, that's not going to be pretty when it's all said and done. So we're going to work around that tonight. I'm adding more black to this, making this color even darker because it does get pretty dark over here on the right side of that canvas. As you can see, it's mighty dark over here. All right, I think this is going to get me started on our canvas. And I'm going to put out a little bit more coffee bean because I probably will want that while we're painting our background. Okay, we are ready to start rocking and rolling on our background. So I want you to use a good a good 1-inch flat brush because we've got a lot of background to cover and you need a big brush to do that. I also want you to place the tip of the brush handle in the palm of your hand and hold your brush back as far as you can. There's no need to hold it up here on the ferrule like a pencil. That doesn't help anybody's situation. All right, so we're going to take our lightest color, and I'm going to pick up a little bit of bright pink in there, just on my brush. That color seemed a little dull for me tonight. So we brighten that color up. Now, what I'm going to do is brush this color on, and as it comes down here to this little stem over here, I'm going to give it a little bit of a ragged edge here. So it's not as straight as it might look on camera. All right, now I'm coming around this rose here, and then I'm going to brush over here and come right up to the top. I'm going to carry this a bit across that first or that second stem area there. I'm going to leave a little bit of canvas just kind of poorly covered there so I know where my stem's going up there. Now, without cleaning my brush, I'm going to pick up a little bit of bright pink and some of the second color I made. And I'm going to brush that on up here at the top. And notice that I'm going to begin immediately to blend that color back and forth, creating a beautiful subtle gradation between my lighter pink and my darker pink over here. Bright pink and my second color mixture. And this linen canvas is a dream to paint on. The paint's gliding on here without any problem. Now I'm going to pick up this darker color and I'm going to paint right up here around my rose. There's a leaf there. And my color's a little bit chalky because I didn't clean my brush out. So I'm going to wipe that lighter pink color out of my brush. I don't need to wash it in water. I'm just going to wipe the excess paint out. And we will pick up more of that dark color and put that on. And boom, look at that. It's beautiful and dark.
Andy, so
Yes.
Francis has asked about doing a background with a palette knife.
You could do that if you want to. I think that for something like this, because we're going to have a lot of busy flowers on it, I want my background to be a little bit more smoothly blended. So that's why I'm doing it with a brush. And so I'm wiping my brush off. And as I come up here where these lighter and darker colors come together, I'm going to begin to merge them gently together. Blend, blend, blend. Soften, soften, soften. As I start to move color where I don't want it, I'll quickly wipe the excess paint off my brush and I can start in again, blending and softening this color nicely together. I don't mind seeing some brush work in the background, but I don't want it to look like some sort of wild 1960s painting. I want to make this just nicely soft and blended.
So Andy, are you able to still see your branches and stuff poking through the?
Not really. I've lost
Okay,
them.
because just as I was asking, someone had put that same question. So you're basically painting over those pencil lines, but you just either
Yes.
remembering where they were, or you can just.
I'm going to show you how to cheat and put them back in just a second.
Okay, fair
But
enough.
Don't freak out about that just yet. There'll be
Okay.
plenty of other things to freak out about. All right, I'm going to carefully turn my painting upside down because I want to make sure that I am painting neatly against my little table line here. And we're going to talk about that in just a second. I'm going to take this really dark color and kind of blend that up into my background a little bit, adding a little bit of an extra zip or zing to that. Now, where we were concerned about where our little floral stems were. So I know that one started about here, and I'm just using the edge of my brush, and I'm making that little bit of a line there. And then over here, I mean, I didn't really plan this to be a difficult painting construction wise, so it's pretty easy. So I'm going to just use a chisel edge of my brush and just kind of mark that line on there. And I'm not sure if you can see that really well You could see where I kind of drew it on there.
Sure, we can see that.
It's just enough to give me a little bit of a guideline about where I'm going. All right, now I'm going to dry this really, really quickly. Okay, now let's talk about 3 lines in our, yes, there is a template for this. It was underneath the supply list on the Michaels website. All right, we have 3 lines that are crucial to making sure that this painting looks right. And I have a T-square here, which is an artist tool. It makes perfect 45-degree angles. And the first line that we need to make sure that is correct on here is our table line. So I have transferred my table line using a T-square so that I know that it's parallel to the bottom edge of my canvas. So my table line is going to be straight no matter what. Okay, everybody get that? That table line has to be straight. No questions about it. Now, my little glass vase is a fairly simple shape of a vase, and it has 2 straight sides on it. Now, these 2 sides have to be parallel to the edges of the canvas. So you need to check with your T-square to make sure that that transferred line and this line over here are straight and parallel to the edges of your canvas. That's why it's super important to get those 3 lines absolutely parallel to the edges of the canvas. Sometimes you will look at a painting and you're looking at it and you're thinking, oh, that painting looks really good, but there's something's a little bit off. And many times it's because the edge of the vase is crooked or the table line is crooked. And neither one of those situations is something you want to have happen. All right, I'm going to go ahead and continue to use my 1-inch brush. I'm picking up this dark color here, and I'm going to add some more engine red to this, a little bit of pure black, and a little bit of coffee bean. So I'm just brush mixing a super dark and very dramatic color here. All right, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to very carefully paint in my vase using this super dark color. And I'm going to make sure that the edges of my vase are perfectly straight. It has to be straight on that outside edge. There is no way around that. If you learn nothing else tonight, that is your takeaway moment from this painting. The edges of that glass vase must be straight and square. All right, I've got my 2 outside edges of the vase nicely painted in. I'm going to paint it along the bottom. And yes, I'm using a big brush. And you can do the same thing with your big brush. I always like to say, don't send a boy to do a man's job. If it's a big area, get a big brush in there and get it done. All right, so I'm painting right up next to this rose, just filling in that glass vase, taking all the worry about painting glass away from you tonight, because that would not make me a very nice Valentine if I made you struggle to paint a glass vase. All right, so we are going to dry this very quickly. Okay, we are doing pretty well right now. All right, now I have this area over here to paint, but then I need to make a very nice subtle transition. So underneath my vase, I am not going to put much paint at all. I'm going to let this paint kind of whisper its way, and it's going to stop just a little bit more than halfway across the bottom of that vase. All right, so again, it's our dark background color plus engine red plus coffee bean plus black. Sorry to make you brush mix so many colors, but that's what makes the painting really pretty overall. All right, I'm going to begin right along my table line, making sure that line is nice and neat. And then we're covering ground fast. Again, this linen canvas is so nice to paint on. The paint literally is just gliding over the surface. I'm not having to work to cover this at all. Right, so I'm going to come right up next to the vase. And I'm going to pick up a little bit more black on just one half of my brush. And I'm going to scooch this black right underneath the vase. Scooch, scooch, scooch that on there. And that's where I'm going to stop it just a little bit beyond halfway. All right, I'm going to wipe my brush off again because I mentioned that I don't want to have too much paint coming underneath the vase. So wiping most of that color off, and you see how it's really not covering very much here, which is exactly what I want to have happen as I just let some of that color just skim over there, and I will pick up more paint on my brush and we'll get this side over here done. And now I've got a beautiful transition over here from the solid areas that are painted in to this kind of skimmed on area, and then I have nothing over here. Whew, it's a lot of work, but it's worth it. And now our background is set, and I'm going to dry this one more time. If this area does not look like it's got nice solid coverage on it, I'm going to pick up a little paint and I'm going to hit the areas that look like they are sparsely covered, giving myself a really nice dark corner of my painting.
Francis, I see your question. She said, Andy, do you think, or he or she said, I'm not sure what Francis is, but Andy, do you think that the color palette is too dark to paint this on glass? So is this a painting you could do on glass?
I'm sure you could do it on glass. It might take multiple coats to get it covered. I'm not sure if this would be what I would really want to do on glass. But I mean, any painting can be done on virtually any surface. So if you want to paint it on glass, go ahead and give it a try, Francis.
There you go.
You might surprise everyone. Okay, there we go. Somebody was asking if you could use a regular canvas. You can. It will not look the same as this does. And you'll have a big old white border over there, which will be kind of jarring to your eye. That's why I specifically selected this linen canvas for this class, because I knew I wanted to leave some of that exposed. And it is, I can't tell you without gushing how incredibly pretty that is. Yes, you can paint on paper. Painting on paper is not the same as painting on glass, and it will have a very different look and feel to it. But you can indeed paint on paper. Ooh, so many questions.
Yes.
All right.
So if you did have white, Andy, because maybe some folks just weren't able to get the linen, they could put in some sort of a base color along that left-hand side. No, the lower left. So that's not just so jarring white.
Yes, they can. And whatever color they put over there, I just hate to drum this in. It's not going to be as pretty as this because it's natural flax, and you just can't duplicate it with paint. But you could paint this with FolkArt has a nice color called linen, which is a tan kind of color. You could put that on there. But again, it's not going to be the same. Just keep that in mind. All right, got to dry this where I added this extra color. Okay, this is, let me just step on my soapbox or behind my pulpit for just a minute. This is one of those few times when the canvas really does make the painting for you. And if you are trying to paint this on a burlap canvas, it's not the same thing. The burlap canvas is way, way much too textured for this. So trust your teacher and invest in the linen canvas, which you can order online at michaels.com, and they will ship it directly to you. It is beautiful. Cannot stress that enough. But I cannot talk about that too much because we have to go on, and we are going to start to paint in some leaves and the suggestion of foliage in our painting. So I'm putting out a little classic green, and I'm shifting down to a number 12 flat brush, and I'll pick up some classic green on my brush. I will also brush mix in a little pure black into that, making a very lovely dark green color.
Andy, could you just quickly, a couple of folks, could you just give me a quick review of the starting colors that you had again when you created this background? Because I think people have been able to follow along with the blending, but some of the colors themselves, would you just quickly review that?
Of course. All right. So to begin with, I had baby pink plus coffee bean. I'm just checking these names now. Plus coffee bean. And then I added just a little bit of engine red to that.
Okay.
Then I started with coffee bean plus engine red and added a little bit of bright pink, coffee bean, and black to that. And then I started with engine red, coffee bean, black, and maybe just a little bit of bright pink in there. So lots of colors, all pretty much the same mixtures. We just have 3 different values of this kind of dusty pink color. And then down here, it's more coffee bean, and black, and engine red here to give us this really rich kind of dark burgundy color. All right, so now I've got my dark green on my brush, which was classic green plus a little pure black. And I'm holding my brush again with the tip of the handle in the palm of my hand, grasping the brush loosely, and I am going to paint in the 2 large leaves over here on the side of the canvas. And I want you to use the corner of your brush, and I'm just kind of scrubbing this along, trying to give myself a little bit of a leaf shape here. And I'll do the same thing here, get that dark color right up next to the rose, and then we'll scrub this color on. I think people are going to spend like too much time painting these leaves, and all we need to do is just give the hint of the shape of a leaf, and whoever's looking at your picture is going to pretty much know that that's a leaf there. You don't have to beat them over the head with the detail. They'll assume that anything green painted next to a rose is a leaf. It's surprising how easy that works. When you look at this painting, you didn't wonder what those green things were. You knew they were leaves. And other people will be able to do the same thing that you did. All right, over here on the right-hand side, there is actually another leaf over here. So I'm just going to scrub that leaf shape in. Notice that this leaf kind of disappears more into the background than these 2 do. and that's perfectly fine. Now, I'm also going to take this same green color, which is classic green plus black, and I am going to give myself my little stems over here. So the stem comes up this way, got a little zigzag thing going on. Okay, just using the chisel edge of my brush, and we'll do the same thing here with this one. And we've got one over here as well. We can't forget this little one. So just use the chisel edge of your brush and you have scuffed on those little stems, and we're not really going to see much of them for a little while. All right, I'm going to take my dark green color and I'm going to suggest some foliage that comes around the back side of my rose here, all the way around the rose. And some of this is going to be scuffed up a little bit. Easy peasy, just giving a little bit of filler for this part of the painting. And I'm going to pick up a little bit more of my classic green, and I'm going to begin to put in the first bits of kind of the leafy stuff that's going on out here at the edge of the painting. So I'm going to have a little bit of a leafy bit here, and a leafy bit over here. We'll have a bit of a leafy thing going on up here. And I am definitely not painting leaves. So let me bring that up for you all to see. When I say leafy bits, that's exactly what we're getting there, some leafy bits. If you are starting to try to paint leaves or to make these things look like something in particular, you are working way too hard, and that is not my intention. I don't need these to be anything more than just some green bits. Also, don't have too much paint on your brush. The brown is called coffee bean. If you don't have coffee bean, you could use burnt umber or any color that looks like a nice chocolate bar. All right, so those are our leafy bits that we are starting off with. So I'm going to give you 1 minute to catch up to everything we've done thus far.
Should be no problem. Everyone will get completely caught up in 1 minute.
Exactly. Remember, this class is being recorded, and you will be able to watch the recording of this class on the michaels.com website in 24 hours. And then within 24 to 48 hours, it will be on the Michaels YouTube channel. So you're not missing out on anything. It will all be there for you.
All right. Oh,
Woo,
look, thank you, PB, who has just posted the whole color list again from the website. So that's great. Appreciate that for doing that.
Yes, indeed. All right, let's turn our attention for just a moment to our glass vase. And I really didn't paint that much of a glass vase. I'm going to hold this up for you to see up close and personal that it's a bit of some blue accents on there, some green stems, and a little green dab. Not a lot of vase that's painted there. All right, so I am going to take some, what color was on my supply list? Let me see what we have here. I had ultramarine blue, which you can use ultramarine blue, or if you have any other color blue, you are welcome to use whatever you have on hand. And because I want to make this a bit of an aqua color, I'm going to need some yellow. And because I'm going to need to lighten this up, I'm going to need some white. So if you have any colors that are going to be close to what I mixed, feel free to use those. All right, so my ultramarine blue plus a little bit of yellow. I didn't clean up there as I should have. I thought I would mention that before someone commented on it. And they will, and that's okay. I think I've added too much yellow to this, but we shall see what happens. All right, and then a little bit of white. Well, that's not going to be the prettiest color, but it will do for right now. Okay, so somewhere in between all of this mixing, I'm going to have a nice kind of pale blue aqua color. It would be much easier to squirt out a color like something like Ocean View or Cayman Blue or any of those kind of beautiful tropical blues that FolkArt has in its assortment. Okay, so I'm going to put out a little bit more blue. And we'll add another, just a shot of plain blue into this. And we'll lighten this just, I know it's taken me a moment to get to the color I want, but we will all get there. Okay, so blue, yellow, and white gives me this kind of nice shade of blue here. And we'll be using that and some of the other blue in the vase. But let's put in a couple of stems first. So I'm going to take some classic green, and this is using my number 12 flat brush, and I'm going to add a bit of yellow to that. So now I've got a nice vivid bright green color. And I'm going to put in a stem or two. We're not going to overdo with the stems in the vase. Okay, so just
Andy,
use it. Yes.
Peggy, this is a good question, I think, for people who have not painted with you very often. Is it better to use a palette knife when mixing colors versus a paintbrush?
I do both. Like when I wanted to make these big puddles of paint or a specific mixture, I'll use a palette knife. But if I'm just like changing green to a light green, I'll just mix it with a brush. That's a very good question. I'm sorry I don't have a better answer. All right, so I'm just going to put in a couple of stems here. I'm not using a liner brush, nor am I thinning this paint down. I think people spend way too much time trying to pick up a bunch of different brushes to do something pretty easy. And the chisel edge of the brush does just fine for making these little stems. Have that one a funky little jiggity jag shape there. All right, now I'm going to add a little bit more yellow and a touch of white to my brush, making this lighter, brighter green color. And I'm going to highlight some of my stems. Where one crossed over the other one there. We've got that one nice and bright. We're going to hit this with a little bit of highlight here in the middle and a little bit on this one. All right, those are our stems. Let me show you those up close and personal. There is not a lot to them, okay? Let's not make a lifetime career out of putting some stems in that vase. We got more important things in this painting than the flowers in that vase. I mean, the stems in the vase. The flowers in the vase are much more important. All right, so cleaning out my brush, I'm just wiping this excess green out of my brush. And I'm going to pick up some of this blue color here. I'm actually going in between those two blues because I think the one is a little bit too light for what I want right now. We're going to add some accent colors onto our vase now. I'm going to start over here in the corner where at the bottom of the vase and the edge of my vase meet. I'm going to tap that on there and then gently sweep up, letting that paint trail off. Look at that. All right, somebody's asking what cloth I'm using to clean off my paint brushes. It is what I like to refer to as a magic blue towel. It is the Scott shop towel. All right, I just took the edge of my brush and went up the side of that vase, making sure that it was nice and square and kind of light. Right, give that another swoop up there. And now we're going to ease this color a little bit more across the bottom of the vase. Skip a little bit and I'll dab some on over there.
Anita, Andy's a big fan of the shop towel. So this is something that you can buy at an automotive store or you can buy it at Home Depot. I don't know if Michaels carries shop towels, probably not, but they're basically like a heavy duty paper towel, but they don't fall apart and they don't give off any lint. They're just like a good sturdy disposable light blue towel. You can get them anywhere.
They are fabulous because they're soft and they are lint free.
Yeah.
So I love them, use them for all that I'm painting. Now I'm lightening up my light blue even more. And I'm going to do one more little hit of this over here on this corner. And I'm going to do another little dash of it right down here. And I'll show you that up close and personal. There you go. Doesn't look like much upside down. So let's whip this around right side up and it will make more sense to you that way. It's not like a chamois towel. These are disposable. All right. So we've got that light blue business going on there. That wasn't too painful. All right, so I'm going to take some of this light blue again, going into the darker portion of that puddle. And I'm going to sweep a little bit of this in from the left edge of the vase. Sorry, I'm off camera. John would have let me know that in just a second.
Sure, I would have.
So we're going to sweep just a little bit of this on. I'm pulling it straight across. I'm not trying to give this vase some kind of curved highlight across the front of it. That is not, we don't need to do that. All right, so just a little hint of that coming out there. And I'll do this, I'll make this a little bit more noticeable for you. But you can see that I pulled straight across, not curving. All right, and then I'm going to take a little bit of my lighter blue on the corner of my brush, lightening that with even a little bit more white. And we're going to put in a little glint of that on here. Ding. Okay, let me show you what that looks like. There you go. All right, we're getting close to being done with our vase. All right, let's put in our darker blue little dab of color on there. And I'm trying to be evasive with what I call these things, because as soon as I say it's something, then that becomes the goal of what you're trying to paint. And we don't have that here. These are just little pieces of color, I guess is the best way to describe that. All right, so I have some of my bright blue on my brush, and I'm going to just swoosh a little bit of this color on. So I have my brush, I'm holding it as far back in my hand as I can. So you see where I'm really holding this brush, not near the end, because I want this to be kind of very relaxed. All right, so just hitting my canvas. And there's not much paint on my brush, so I could do this several times. And then let me show you what that looks like. It's a swoosh of blue, kind of goes over some of those stems. And I'm going to pick up a little bit more paint on my brush this time. And I'm going to intensify that little swoosh by adding a bigger dab of blue within it. Okay, just a little piece of color there. And I'm going to do something similar with some green. I'm going to take some of my classic green on my brush. Don't need too much. And I'm going to add a little piece of green kind of right down here on the vase. All right, so there's that. That's probably not as attractive as I would like it to be. It's got a little bit too much paint on my brush, so I'm going to wipe my brush out just a little bit, and I will just kind of loosen that up.
So Andy, I think a question that came through is, how do you know when you're done? Because, you know, there's that tendency to just keep fussing with it until you've kind of overdone it.
Yeah, the easiest, and it seems like the simplest rule of thumb is the moment that you think it needs something else, that's when you stop. Because if you think it needs something else, you've probably already done too much.
There you go.
And you learn that over time. And I still go and take classes, and I'm always trying to learn things and improve my painting skills. Now, I've lightened up my green. I just recently took an online class, and we were asked to upload we had homework to do. And so we were asked to upload our homework. And I uploaded my picture and went back to see if there had been any comments on it. And of course, I took one look at it and realized that there were a number of problems. Like, for one, my table line was not straight, and I was mortified about that. And so the teacher was, quick to point out that I was right, that needed to be corrected. All right, so I added a little light green dab in there. All right, we're done with the vase. I could, if I wanted to, and see, this is one of those things. I say we're done. I look at what I had done before, and I'm thinking we could add a little light green dab up there. And it's not much. I mean, it is, oh, I'm sorry, I just hit the camera. But that little light green dab up there is definitely not much. And I'm sorry that we're shaking. It's earthquake cam. All right. So I'm going to say that we're done with our vase. And this vase does not have any bright white highlights on it. So you are spared that. But we are about to shift into rose painting mode. So I want you all to, I'm going to paint this little rose here, which is kind of like the side profile of a rose here. So I'm going to take some of that background color here. And I want you to watch what I'm doing now very, very carefully. I'm going to begin to just scruff some of this pinky color on there. I don't have much paint on my brush. So even though I'm scooching this onto my rose, let me show you. You can see through the rose to some of those transfer lines. You can see some of the canvas through there. Nothing is really defined about that at all. All right, I'm leaving that color in my brush, whatever it was, and I'm going to put out a little bit more white over here because I forgot there was some on my palette, and we wanted it to have company. All right, so I'm going to pick up some of that dirty color, and it is just gloriously dirty on my brush. So there is pink in there, there's blue in there, there's green in there. It's a great light kind of gray color. So it's that kind of color that you just can't mix with a palette knife to make a puddle of it. You want all of that kind of the magic to be happening in the paintbrush. Now just watch this, and I'm going to just kind of scooch on a few little petals here and there. And I can't give you much more direction than that, but I am going to use the corner of my brush to start to put some of these little petals on. And now you can kind of see where the top rose is open there at the top. There's not much to that. I want you to really look at that. There ain't much to it, folks. Just a little bit of this kind of marvelous grayish color scuffed on there. Now, this is where I wish you all could be standing right over my shoulder, watching what I'm doing, because it is so marvelously simple. It is really not struggling too much to paint this flower. If you start to really try to paint things and make this look like something, it's not going to do that for you. It will just say to you, no, 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 you're trying far too hard. I am not going to cooperate with you. So we really are just giving the vaguest suggestion of some flower petals. All right, so let's look at what we've got on there. And I'm just about done with that. There really simply is not much to that. This is just a very loose and very impressionistic way of painting a rose. And so many people get hung up on painting roses, and a rose is really not more than just a few dabs of color put in the right place. And I know that sounds very, very trite, but now we are really done with that rose. That's it. Gray, a little pink, a little bit of white, just dabbed on. All right, this rose we're going to spend a little bit more time on. And I say a little bit more time, we're not spending much time on this at all. So once again, I really want you to watch what I'm going to be doing rather than try to do it along with me. You will pick up so much more by paying attention to what I'm doing than trying to do it along, because I can't practice this for you while we're painting. Okay, I've picked up some of this dark color that we had in the background over here, and I'm going to put that in the darkest part of this rose, which is kind of this kind of opening area of the rose. All right, I could make this color darker if I wanted to, but I don't really think it's going to help. We're just getting this dark in the middle here. And then I'm going to put a little bit of this kind of darkness in this area of the rose here. Notice that that's the same color that's in the vase. So that's going to work out well when you just kind of scuff some of that color into the vase and off of your rose. Now I'm going to pick up some of this pinky color, or maybe that lighter background color. And I'm going to dab some of this on. And I want to just dab a little bit into that dark area of the rose so that you can see this has some value change in here. It's not just like one dark bullseye. All right, I'm going to take some of these 2 shades of pink on my brush, and I'm going to turn this rose upside down while I paint it, because I think it's easier for me to paint in this direction. So I'm going to begin to develop some of these outside edges of this rose, and I'm simply stroking on with the paint that's in my brush. There's a little bit of paint in there, and there's also not much paint. So you can see when I go out over the leaf, I have just a whisper of color on my brush. And we are trying to make sure that our rose doesn't simply look like some gigantic circle. We want our rose to have some interesting shape to it. Because when you look at a rose, and I know some of you got beautiful roses today for Valentine's Day, if you look at them, they are not all perfect circles. Some of them are starting to open and they're looking like little spirals and star shapes and all sorts of fun things going on with your Valentine roses. All right, I'm building some contrast between the opening of the rose and the front edges of those petals. And we are about to start in on the fun stuff. So take a look at that. It's already looking like a rose. I don't have to do much more to it to make it a rose. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up some of my not pink color, my white on my brush, which is going to give me a pink color. And I can add in some bright pink to this if I want to change that color. I picked up too much then, so I'm wiping some of that off on my shop towel. You don't really want to turn this into some hot pink rose. We'll put some hot pink in this painting, but this is not the place for it. All right, so I want to make sure that the opening of the rose is where I've got some of my best color contrast. So do you see I've just slapped on a couple of little strokes there. I didn't try to form a petal. I'm just adding some light color there. And we're going to start back here. All right, do you see how that's starting to come around there? Beginning to make a little opening in my flower. See how we're making that opening of the rose? And they're not a bunch of perfectly sequential little dabs of color that go on. It's a very organic how you do this. And some people's roses will have this instant organic feel to it, and others you're going to have to work at it some. Some people require a glass of wine. Some people require a little adjustment in their attitude and the fact that you can't paint a beautiful rose if you set out to do that. All you can do is hope to paint a nice flower and things will hopefully go your way. But if you are trying to paint a perfect rose, it's not going to happen for you. It simply does not work that way. You have to just relax and let it happen.
It's a metaphor for life, people. You just got to relax and let it happen. If you try to make it perfect, it'll never work out that way.
Exactly. Can quote Barbara Streisand here and say, you just have to let go and let God. So I'm sure
I thought you were going to go with some philosopher like Kierkegaard or Descartes, but no, you went Barbara Streisand on us. Okay.
She made it out, John.
Okay.
She's fabulous. It was I had the opportunity to go see her live in concert, and I was with a very good friend of mine who knew I was slightly Streisand obsessed. And so we're sitting there and the music's starting to kind of the overture is starting to play. And he goes, "Are you excited for this?" And I just looked at him and I said, if she doesn't sound exactly like she does on the records, I'm going to be devastated. And it was very funny. She stepped out on that stage and she started that nasal humming that she does at the beginning of Evergreen. And seriously, I had these chills and I'm like, she sounds exactly like she does on the record. And it was magic to hear that voice. So here I'm adding just some lighter colors in white. And I am almost done with this rose. And of course, to keep on with our Streisand reference, this is not Secondhand Rose from 2nd Avenue.
I got nothing. I don't know.
You got nothing for that?
I don't have my Streisand catalog that I can draw from the way you do.
Because I thought you were going to say Jake the plumber is the man that she adores. Had the nerve to tell her he's been married before. She's just a secondhand rose from 2nd Avenue. All right, so I've put more than enough petals on this rose, but I'm looking at it and it looks delightfully fluffy. So I think I can stop there. I don't need to add any more as I'm talking to you. This is where you have troubles. And this is where it all goes south. So we're going to stop with that rose. Take a deep breath, and we are about to paint some flowers that I don't know the names of. And it doesn't matter that I know the names of them because they're just little, they're pinky, spiky flowers. So I'm going to put out some brighter pink. This pink is almost like a fluorescent pink, and it's beautiful. But what I'm going to do is show you how we're going to take our bright pink color and some of our background pink, and we've got this really, really kind of tremendously vivid color here. And I'm going to paint in a little flower. And let me show you up close what that little flower looks like. Okay, I don't know what you all would call that, but it's kind of a very wispy dab of color there. I'm dabbing this paint on. I don't have too much on my brush, but I'm going to put these in a pleasing arrangement of color, because a thing of beauty is a joy forever. So we want to do it in a pleasing manner. If you can't see it, then adjust your color with either some more pink or some white, because you see this little bit up here is getting harder to see. So I'm going to lighten that color up a little bit. I've got too much paint on my brush. Let's blot some of that off. Okay, it could be a pink larkspur. I don't know what larkspur looks like. I'm assuming that it's on a spiky little stem like this. All right, so here we go, dabbing some more of these little flowers on. If they don't show up, make them show up. I'm picking up some brighter pink and some white. You simply have to have a different color pink than what your background is. And we'll do some over here. We'll do a couple in between, kind of breaking up some of that green foliage we put in there. I'm trying to see some of your comments, and you're going so fast, it's hard to do that. Right, picking up a little bit more of that really bright pink, coming back in here, working some of that in here and there.
So,
all right,
Andy, here is a question. Why would you start, I guess, wouldn't you start with the darker color before the lighter? Was a question that Lori was asking.
Not necessarily. I'm just kind of getting these little dabs on here so that I can see where we're going as we paint this.
Okay.
All right, so now I'm going to take some of this really, really bright hot pink color, and we're going to come back in and we're going to just intensify some of these. And we're not going to intensify everything to the same degree. That would be incredibly boring and not what we're after. We don't want boring pink flowers. If you have too much paint on your brush, you will be not thrilled with your results. You should be seeing the weave of the canvas every time you are painting these little flowery dabs on there. Right, so I'm going to take a little, what?
Some people were suggesting larkspur, which I just pulled up on my phone, and that is a very good guess because these do look very larkspur-ish.
Does larkspur-ish come in pink?
Well, these particular ones seem to be purple, but
well, then we've just got a variation of that.
But the shape is definitely correct. Oh, all yeah, right, so no, they definitely do come in pink.
Okay, I'm taking some engine red and some of my bright pink color, because look what happens when I do that. I get a different shade of pink going on here. So some of this is going to be definitely a little bit darker, a little bit more intense. And again, when I show you this, I want you to see that these are really not flowers at all. They are bits of color. And some of this is almost just red that I'm putting on here. But because I'm putting it on in such a delicately haphazard way, it's kind of looking pinkish, which is wonderful. All right, so let's look at what I've got going on. These really are just little dibs and dabs of color. And I know we are over our time. So in for a penny, in for a pound. And some of you will just cringe when you see what I'm about to pull out next. Yes, it is our beautiful friend, our palette knife. And we're going to put some palette knife leaves and flowers on here. So let's put in a little bit more of our pink flower on here. So we're going to load our palette knife by tapping on the palette so that we don't have too much paint on our brush or on our palette knife. And we're going to just skim some of this very, very vivid pink color on. And I'm going to do a little bit, and then I'm going to hold it up close to the camera so you can see what this all looks like. All right, so over here, just on this one stem, I've really changed the way that looks by giving some different shapes and different marks with our palette knife. And I'm loving the way that looks. So I'm going to take that same pink and red now. I've added a little red into this. Dab, dab, dab our palette knife on our palette so that we don't have too much paint on our palette knife. And we're coming in here and I say filling in. I'm not really filling in. I'm adding some more pink kind of around our rose flower. And I'm going to put a little bit down so that it touches my rose, because we can't act like we're afraid of our flowers. And we'll work some of this up. And this is the best time of this painting, when you're just starting to add in these bits of color with your palette knife. And now I'm going to shift and I'm going to make a brighter pink with some of this super vivid pink and white.
A couple of people, because we usually talk about this every class, so let's talk about it tonight. That is palette paper. Barbara, and someone else had asked also, that's what he's using. It comes in a pad generally, and you can get small little pieces like, normal 8x10 size, or you can get big oversized pieces. And
Yes.
it is a waxy type paper. It is not wax paper like you get at the grocery store, but it is waxy. And
yes,
you can
the wax paper from the grocery store will, it'll shrivel when your paint gets on it, and it's not sturdy. This is a wax coated palette paper. You can, if you're shopping in your Michaels store, it's in the area kind of where the drawing supplies are and the sketch pads and things like that. And you can find it sitting on the shelf, just waiting for you to pick it up. 9x12, 16x20 are the best sizes that you can find in your stores. I happen to have ordered an extra large size online, but that's just me, because I just love having a lot of extra space to work on. But a palette, a good palette knife, good brushes, FolkArt paints, that's really all you need to have a successful painting studio. All right, I'm just
and it's nice at the end because it just tears off and throws right away. So you don't have to clean anything. It's just disposable.
Heavens to Betsy now. All right, so what I'm going to do with what little bit of paint, I use it on the pad. Here, see, mine is all hooked down to one pad. All right, I'm going to take some of this light pink that's on my palette knife right now, and there's not much on there, and I'm going to give a little swoosh onto my rose. So see that I've swooshed some of that pink onto my rose? Okay. Now, some of that we smooshed onto the rose, we're also going to smoosh on into the background a little bit of smooshing going on there. And then I'll pick up a little bit and we'll get some going up in there. We're just loosening up our design with that. All right, now we have to put some chartreuse on here because, well, it's going to be pretty. All right, I'm going to take some of my classic green and some yellow. And on my palette knife, I'm going to make a beautiful chartreuse green. And I'm going to add a little bit of white to that to make it a bit bolder. This is going to be so pretty on here. Okay, so I'm going to pick up a little bit of this really bright green, and I'm going to put in a little leafette. And what is a leafette? That is a leafette. It's just a green dab of paint, people. There's no such thing as a leafette. I made that up for you. If nothing else, the leafette is your Valentine's gift from me to you tonight. And if you're wondering about a varnish, I'm going to continue to add some of these chartreuse leafettes here and there. And I will tell you that, yes, I do varnish my paintings. I love using the matte FolkArt acrylic paints, but when I'm done painting with them, oftentimes I want my painting, as I've gotten older, I have tended to start liking my floral paintings to have a gloss finish to them. I don't want to paint with glossy paint because I love my original formula FolkArt, but I will spray it with FolkArt, not FolkArt, with Patricia Nemec's clear acrylic sealer in the gloss finish. All right, one other thing we have to do, well, we've got two other little tiny details. I need to highlight these leaves over here. So I'm going to take my chartreuse green and tone it down a little bit. I don't need it to be quite that bright. So just added some classic green to it. And I'm going to just put a little bit of a highlight on that leaf. And a bit on here. All right, so this is our leaves are done. Whoa, just about threw that in there. So our leaves are done. Notice that I did not spend much time on that. You should not spend much time on that. This is the star of the painting here. All right, I want to take my, I can do this with the number 12 flat or a number 8 flat, it doesn't matter, whatever you've got handy. I'm doing it with the number 12 flat. All right, so I'm going to take some of this light green, my chartreusey green, if you will, and I'm going to tap back in here and there a little bit of my stem. All right, you can see where I've highlighted that stem on the right. I've not done anything to the other two. We're going to do those now. All right, so I've highlighted that center stem. And I've got a little bit to do over here on this baby stem over here. And really, you saw us spent no time doing that. So don't spend a lot of time on that. All right, now I'm looking at my finished painting and I'm looking at the one I'm teaching you tonight, and I want to add a little bit of a brighter accent over here. So I'm going to take some of my bright pink and my white. We're going to lighten that up even more. And I'm going to tap, tap, tap on my palette. So I don't have much paint on my palette knife at all. And I'm going to give a couple of these little jewels over here a bit of a highlight, just to brighten it up here and there a little bit. Don't want to do it all over or do it everywhere. I can add maybe a little bit of a brighter one over here. Okay, I think I'm going to say that we're done. And I'm reasonably happy with the way, oh, no, I've got one more thing. Heavens, I am going to forget an important step. All right, I am going to take some of my my engine red, and I'm going to add a little bit of my bright pink to it. I'm adding a little bit of pink to the red because my red is going to be a little transparent for this. So the smallest amount of pink in there, and it is still mostly, it's 95% red, but I just need that little bit of pink in there to make this show up. And we're going to accent our table. And I did not see that question about the color and the
Does
varnish.
the varnish alter the color at all after it dries?
It makes the color pop. It brings the color to life. It's a good thing. All right, I'm picking up some of this red color on my palette knife, and I've got most of it on one side of my palette knife. And hopefully I'm going to do this beautifully for you. All right, I'm going to set my palette knife down so that the edge of my palette knife is right along my table line. And I'm just going to give it a little pull down. So I have a little bit of drama and excitement over here. Right, and I didn't do this exactly as I wanted to, and that's okay. I'm going to show you how to come back and alter it if you must. I really did just want a little tiny bit of that to come down, but I've got a big area there that I'm not in love with. So we're going to dry this, and I'm going to show you how to correct that. Okay, if you get something that you don't want, usually my rule of thumb is you get what you get and you don't pitch a fit. And I'm not really pitching a fit here. I'm pitching a, here's how you fix it moment. So I'm going to take some of my dark color on my palette knife, and hopefully I'm going to just skim a little bit of that back up and break that up beautifully. Add a little bit more black to that, and a little bit more of my red. So very small amount of paint. Give it a little streaky poo there. And we are covering up some of that red that I did not want. So we've now got a beautifully broken up amount of red there, which I'm much happier with that being broken up. And here is the final painting. So you can see I did come back and put a little bit more of my engine red on here to really make this little bit of the table have a bit of that extra drama going on there. All right, so we are now 20 minutes past the hour. So I hope you enjoyed our extra long class tonight. So did we have any last minute questions, John?
I don't think so, but a lot of people were saying what a wonderful lesson it was and a wonderful class, and people are loving it. So it was a long one, guys. And again, if you weren't able to keep pace, just go back and watch the recording, or even if you did keep pace. Andy always talks about doing a painting a second time. Why don't you give them that pearl of wisdom? Because I found it very helpful when I was learning from you the first time.
Yes, indeed. It is, it's one of those kind of strange things that I picked up in a workshop with a person who was talking about kinetic memory, how you kind of like muscle memory. And they say your brain is the same way, that if you are learning a task and you repeat that task within 7 days, you will remember much more of what you did, rather than if you wait a couple of weeks to do something, you will have forgotten so much of what you learned. So within 7 days is the key. So paint a second one and you will remember so much more about it, and you will do a better job. And so we'd love to see you posting your paintings to social media. Don't forget the hashtags. Make it with Michael's Crafts, Plaid Crafts.
Michael's
Did I
Classes,
miss
yeah.
one? And the Let's Paint Challenge, if you'd like to join our Facebook group, Let's Paint with Plaid, would like to have you there because I usually teach there twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So I think that's going to wrap it up for us, John.
Yes, Jimena has just posted the hashtags in the chat, but
Perfect.
yes, Andy does. For those of you who do not know, Andy teaches all the time for free in our Let's Paint with Plaid Facebook group. So go to
Yes.
Facebook, Let's Paint with Plaid in the groups area. Join that group
Indeed.
and you will get all kinds of cool classes like this one. So
Very
we
good.
encourage you to do that. Oh
Yes,
yeah, next
so
week's
thanks.
picture. Monica just
Yes.
reminded us. What's next week's painting?
I don't know, John.
They did not give you that?
They did not give me that. I'm so sorry.
Oh, well, we're supposed to, Andy and I were remiss because we are supposed to make sure that that is on our checklist of things to do before we start, but we
Yes,
didn't.
and
So
it
just
was
go to
not.
the website, look up Michael's classes and you'll see it.
It's posted there.
It is
I can't
definitely
even venture a guess as to what it is without saying something wrong.
It's not on the
But,
table behind you there, Andy? No? No, over your other shoulder? No, nothing? Okay.
No, nothing here. So
All right.
my bad. I will take all the blame for that. I'll take all the blame, none of the credit. But it is posted on the Michaels website. You can definitely go to michaels.com/online
Is it with Donna
classes.
Dewberry next week? What?
Oh yes, it will be with Donna Dewberry.
Ooh, that's a special.
That's why
one.
I didn't know, because I hadn't seen it sitting around. I do know that she's teaching 2 Michaels classes next week.
Paint Night Live, Donna Dewberry, Folk Art, Pink Floral Reef. Whoop whoop.
Yes.
If you've never learned or had a class with Donna, I would encourage you to do that. That is a really fascinating technique and a lot of fun to paint with her. So I will encourage you.
So
to do
you have
that.
2 chances next week to paint with her.
Yeah.
Okay, so now that we've almost covered that, whew,
Let's
all
get
right,
out of here.
so-
We are late.
yes. Thank you all and happy Valentine's Day.
Bye, everybody.